All right, welcome back. I'm here with the latest in Fort Wayne news. Today we're actually going to talk a little real estate. We're going to talk taxes, a lot of things that are going to affect you, so let's kick it off. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. My name is Jake McAfee. I'm a local real estate agent here in Fort Wayne. I'm here to keep you updated with everything going on in our great city. And if you're thinking about moving to the area, be sure to check the description. I've got some links there so we can connect, but all right, let's kick it off. So like I said, starting with some real estate news for a change. I am a real estate agent after all. The iconic Pizza Hut mansion, the Freeland mansion, has been listed for sale for $6,750,000. It's an absolutely gorgeous piece of land. It's actually, I live pretty close to here, so every time I leave my house, I drive by it, and it's mostly wooded, but you can kind of see some of it, and I've got some good aerials that we're gonna be sharing with you now. It's 39,000 square feet, 50 acres, 8 bedrooms, 9 full bathrooms, 6 half bathrooms. It's got an incredible views of, there's a pond and woods and a little bridge. There's also just a gorgeous horse barn. I've actually been fortunate enough to be invited to a few parties there, and it's so nice. There's like a hearth room, and all the stalls have so much detail. Like when you think horses, you don't think of something this nice. This is like something out of a fairy tale, and the Freelands are a great family, and they've been very good to my family and my wife in particular. So big fans of them, and really excited. I know this is kind of a bittersweet thing for them, but everyone in Fort Wayne knows the Pizza Hut mansion, and now the country's starting to get familiar with it. So hopefully it sells, and if you want to buy it, just let me know. Okay, second up that we're going to discuss, Southwest Allen County Schools, one of the highest rated school districts in the area, just announced that they're going to start doing a lottery to let in kids from out of the area. The board voted unanimously for this change, and there's going to be a few stipulations. So students can be disqualified if they've had 10-day suspension or expulsion, if they've brought a weapon or destructive device, they've caused physical injury to a student, employee, or visitor, they've violated the school's drug and alcohol policy, and they're gonna look 12 months back into this criteria. So the out-of-district capacity, so how many kids they're gonna let in, is gonna be determined year by year, and it's gonna be a public drawing. So they're gonna do a public drawing, you can enter, and then they're gonna announce who got in, and transportation will not be provided. So, if you're from out of the area, you're gonna have to find your own way to and from school. I kind of have mixed feelings on this. On one hand, I think it's a good thing. It can be great for somebody who maybe has some aspirations for more. Maybe they're not from the best part of town, and they either excel academically or athletically, or they just want to be in a better environment. And I definitely feel for them. I think the flip side is like, it almost, I don't want to say disincentivizes, but if you've sacrificed, if you've lived on less to be able to get yourself into this school district, and then someone who didn't gets in. So I can see both sides of it. Overall, I think it's a good thing, assuming that, it's not such a large number that, it changes the culture. I think that would be the main thing, because that would kind of defeat the purpose in the first place. Okay, so the mayor and the city council, they just announced that they are pulling funding on the new gateway sign that was gonna be at the Jefferson and 69 exit. They had proposed a new sign to be installed. It was actually pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool looking. Shockingly, Facebook didn't like it. But I thought it was pretty cool. The thing that was not so cool was the $815,000 price tag. There was a lot of public backlash. Mayor Sharon Tucker basically said, hey, citizens, you were heard. We are not gonna do this. This is a need, this is a want, and we're gonna focus on needs. And I think I would agree with that. Kind of like the last topic, I see both sides of it. On one thing, especially in an ever competitive environment, branding is extremely important. So a city's branding, Fort Wayne has been pretty vanilla and pretty generic for the longest time. And so I think starting to create some things that are uniquely Fort Wayne, like the founder of the Bradley Hotel, her name is escaping me right at the moment, but basically she said that she wanted to give something when people were visiting town, she wanted to leave a lasting impression on visitors. So instead of saying it like a Marriott or a Hilton, and no disrespect to them, but they're kind of all the same everywhere. She wanted to create something that only Fort Wayne had. So when you stayed there and you left, you thought back and you were like, that Bradley Hotel and Fort Wayne was awesome. And I think this plays to that, creating a brand, creating imagery. but $815,000, especially, you know, like we've talked about in some previous news updates, like, you know, we're having some funding issues. We've been a very well-run city, but, you know, with the new SB1 bill that's gonna limit property taxes, you know, we are gonna be a little tight on cash in some other areas. So almost $1 million on a sign seems a little frivolous. So maybe if we get a surplus, this would be something I would fully support if we had a surplus. But right now, there's probably better avenues for this money to be spent. One of the proposals was the southeast side of town. You know, city officials have been really trying to figure out how to bolster this area and grow it. And there's been talks of reappropriating that money for that area. Okay, another big one with tax dollars is Northwest Allen County residents just voted no on a referendum to raise property taxes. This was kind of a big one. You know, it kind of snuck up on me. I didn't hear a lot about it until kind of in the 11th hour right before the election last week. Basically, 54% of the voters voted no on this. The money was going to go to have increasing teachers' salaries, hire some school resource officers, and staffing the career and technical education and alternative education facilities. So basically, helping bolster the program for trades. You know, basically instead of trying to funnel everyone to college, they're trying to create other avenues for kids, which I love. I think that's a great idea. But you know, surprisingly, less than 20% of the registered voters participated, and then 54% voted no. So it was fairly close. The tax increase was going to be 27 cents. It was like 27.87. So let's call it 27 cents per $100 of assessed value. So like on a $450,000 house, that would be about $1,200 in taxes. The estimate was that this tax increase was gonna generate $12,156,914. So basically a little over $12 million was gonna be generated. This one's really complicated for me. I mean, ultimately investing in education, especially non-traditional, you know, instead of trying to get everyone to go to college, I love giving kids an alternative. I think that's great. I like raising teachers' salaries. I mean, I've always appreciated teachers, but I started coaching basketball, middle school girls basketball the last couple years, and I have a whole new appreciation for what teachers deal with every day. I don't know that I'm wired for it. So I love that idea. I think where I have some hesitations is raising taxes again, you know, kind of the tax and spend mentality. I find it hard to believe that there's no waste. There's nothing we could be, you know, there's no sharpening of the pencil that's possible that could make this happen. I find that hard to believe, and I think it also sets a really dangerous precedent where, you know, you can say, well, it's about the kids, we can raise the taxes, and it's like, well, when does it stop? You know, where's the incentive to be fiscally responsible when you know you can just take money from more residents? So I was kind of happy that the residents stood up for themselves on this one. Again, with my limited knowledge, you know, especially because property taxes have gone up significantly since I moved back in 2019. So they've already had a big boom. You know, they built a new football stadium for Carroll. They're opening a new middle school for Northwest Allen County. So there has been a lot of money raised and spent. So when I saw, hey, we need more money, I'm not saying it was wrong, just my gut reaction was like, man, I'd be really curious to know the details about where this is going. So I live in Southwest Allen County in the Aboite district, so ultimately this doesn't affect me directly, but I sell a lot in Northwest Allen and I have a lot of, you know, clients and friends that live there. So definitely important, definitely something to keep an eye on. If you feel strongly about this, if you're maybe a little bit more educated than myself, please leave a comment. Let me know something I missed, maybe an angle I didn't consider. I'd love to hear that. If someone's moving to the area, I'd love them to hear both sides of the coin. Okay, the final topic of the day, City Council voted no on an urban trail downtown. This was basically gonna connect some existing trails, and it was gonna be the section on Superior from Lafayette to Clinton. I'm showing you some shots of that right now. You know, this area has been big in development. There's been a lot going on there, new apartments. You know, they're trying to increase walkability, bikes, everything. That was a proposal. Despite this small little stretch, it was gonna cost a whopping $1.6 million. And that was ultimately why it got voted down. It was voted down 1-4, then one person did not show up for the vote. So basically 1-4. Jeff Paddock, whose district it's in, voted yes. Councilwoman Michelle Chambers originally voted yes, but changed her vote to no. And she agreed to consider it. I guess they're gonna do a revised proposal in about 3 weeks. I think that's good. I like the idea. I think that's gonna be a hub of activity. There's a lot of development. It's kind of right in the mix. It's one of the focuses of where the Fort Wayne government's been trying to redevelop. But 1.6 million for like a block of sidewalk seems kind of crazy. But you know, you're building a brand new, huge apartment right there. Like there's gonna be a lot of people around there. So I think like a nice wide area for them to rollerblade, walk, bike, like that's kind of the whole point of doing all this, is like we're trying to increase connectivity. So it's complicated, but hopefully they can make it work. And I know, you know, part of it was the new SB1 bill that I just referenced earlier. That's part of it. So like, you know, we do have some budgetary constraints, and, you know, maybe they're gonna revisit this when downtown moves along further. You know, lead with revenue. Like if you're in a business, if you're a business owner, and I say this a lot, I lead with revenue. I'm not gonna spend money until I have it. And we haven't been doing that, as you know, governments tend to do. They go into a lot of debt. So I think, you know, leading with revenue would be a good idea on this one, and make sure that we're just being very methodical. I am happy that, you know, we do have a more conservative city council that has our best needs, and some would argue, hey, you know, they're hindering progress. And I think I tend to agree in some circumstances where maybe there are things that we could or should have done that we didn't, but ultimately I think everybody's best interest is being served when we're doing things carefully, because there's a lot of money at stake and the implications are, you know, far reaching and, you know, basically into future generations. So if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I'm working really hard to keep you guys updated. If there's ever a topic that you want to know more about, definitely leave a comment. Again, if you're new to the channel or if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, hit that notification bell. Also, again, the comments are huge. So not only do I want to know what you guys are seeing, what you're thinking, I want other people to know what the community is thinking, but those comments help engagement, and engagement helps my video reach further. So if you want to support the channel, definitely do those things. Again, I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next video.